In Chapter 10, we're going to look at organizational change and innovation. This is one of my favorite topics. Most CEOs, general managers, and senior public sector leaders agree that incremental changes are no longer sufficient in a world that is operating in fundamentally different ways. Life in general, they say, is becoming more complex, and the firms that are able to manage the complexity are the ones that will survive in the long term. As a manager, you're going to typically have to deal with two types of change, reactive and proactive. Reactive change involves making changes in response to problems or opportunities as they arise. Proactive change, also known as planned change, involves making carefully thought out changes and in anticipation of possible or expected problems or opportunities. How do managers know when their organizations need to change? The answers aren't clear-cut, but you can get clues by monitoring the forces for change both inside and outside the organizations. Remember that technology is not just computer technology. It is any machine or process that enables an organization to gain a competitive advantage in changing materials used to produce a finished product. Outside forces for change include items such as demographic changes, technological advancements, shareholder, customer, and market changes, as well as social and political pressures. Inside forces include human resource concerns and managers' behaviors. Three types of change from least threatening to most threatening include adaptive change, innovative change, and radically innovative change. The least threatening adaptive change is the reintroduction of a familiar practice. For example, during the annual Labor Day sale, a department store may ask its sales employees to work 12-hour days instead of the usual 8. During tax prep time, the store's accounting department may imitate this same change in work hours. Although accounting employees are in a different department from sales employees, it's expected that they wouldn't be terribly upset by a temporary change in hours, since they've seen it in effect elsewhere in the store. Innovative change is the introduction of a practice that is new to the organization. For example, should a department store decide to adapt a new practice of competitors by staying open 24 hours a day, requiring employees to work flexible schedules? And if so, this may be felt as moderately threatening to the employees. And then finally, radically innovative change. This involves introducing a practice that is new to the industry. For example, Amazon is currently testing a new delivery system called Prime Air in Canada, the United Kingdom, and the Netherlands. This program uses drones to carry packages up to 5 pounds in 30 minutes or less. The goal is to safely operate the drones for a distance of 10 miles or more beyond the line of sight. This would be disruptive to the entire industry. One model of change I would like to discuss is Lewin's change model. This involves 3 stages: unfreezing, changing, and refreezing. In the unfreezing stage, managers try to instill in employees the motivation to change, encouraging them to let go of attitudes and behaviors that are resistant to innovation. For this unfreezing to take place, employees need to become dissatisfied with the old way of doing things. Managers also need to reduce the barriers to change during this stage. In the changing stage, employees need to be given the tools for the change: new information, new perspectives, new models of behavior. Managers can help here by providing benchmarking results, role models, mentors, experts, and training. It's advisable, experts say, to convey the idea that change is a continuous learning process and not just a one-time event. Finally, in the refreezing stage, employees need to be helped to integrate the changed attitudes and behaviors into the normal way of doing things. Managers can assist by encouraging employees to exhibit the new change, and then, through additional coaching and modeling, reinforce the employees in the desired change. Change creates additional change. That's the lesson of systems theory. Adopting a team-based structure, for example, may require require changing the compensation system to pay bonuses based on team rather than individual performance. And a systems approach to change presupposes that any change, no matter how small, has a rippling effect throughout an organization. In the systems change, you have inputs, you have target elements of change, and you have outputs. This is also involving a feedback loop. In the inputs, you ask the question, why should we change and how willing and able are we to change? Things to look at here are things such as the mission, vision, statements, the strategic plan, and an analysis of the organization's readiness for change. When deciding the target elements of change, you should ask what levers can we pull that will produce the change that we want. 4 target elements that managers may use to diagnose problems include people, organizational arrangements, methods, and social factors. And finally, the outputs are what do we want to gain from the change. Change may be designed to occur at the level of an organization, a group, the individual, or all of them. And again, this involves a feedback loop where you go back to the inputs as well. Organizational development is a set of techniques for implementing planned change to make people and organizations more effective. Note here the inclusion of people in this definition. Organizational development focuses specifically on people in the change process. A change agent is a consultant with a background in behavioral sciences who can be a catalyst in helping organizations deal with old problems in new ways. Often, organizational development is put into practice by these people known as change agents. This slide depicts the organizational development process. The first step is diagnosis, looking at what the problem is. Organizational development consultants or managers use some combination of questionnaires, surveys, interviews, meetings, recordings, and direct observation to ascertain people's attitudes and to identify problem areas. Step 2 is intervention. What shall be done about the problem? Some organizational activities for implementing planned change are communicating survey results to employees to engage them in the problem-solving items. You can also observe employee communication patterns and teach them skills to improve them. Step 3 is evaluation. This is looking at how well the intervention worked. Answers may lie in the hard data about how absent employees are, turnover, grievances, profitability. These should be compared then with earlier statistics. The change agent can use questionnaires, surveys, interviews, and the like to assess changes in employee attitudes. And finally, feedback. How can the diagnosis and intervention be further refined? If evaluation shows that the diagnosis was wrong and the intervention was not effective, the organizational development consultant or managers need to start again at the beginning. Let's now take a look at the types of innovation. Today, innovation is more than just developing new products. It's about reinventing business processes and building entirely new markets that meet untapped customer demand. Product innovation is the change in the appearance or performance of a product or the creation of a new one. Process innovation is the change in the way a product is conceived, manufactured, or disseminated. Core innovations involve optimizing a product or services for existing customers. These innovations may be small or large, incremental or radical. The difference is in modifying versus replacing existing products. A transformational innovation is a breakthrough that doesn't yet exist. An example of this is Alphabet, Google's parent company, is experimenting with sending off high-altitude balloons. This is because they have an ambitious plan to beam high-speed internet to remote areas using these balloons. Finally, let's look at the threat of change and how managers can help reduce employee fear and resistance. Resistance, which is an emotional or behavioral response to real or imagined threats to an established work routine, can be as subtle as passive resignation or as overt as deliberate sabotage. As you will learn, change experts believe that resistance does not primarily reside within the individual, but then instead is a result of the context in which change occurs. As you might expect, resistance to change is reduced when change agents and employees have a trusting relationship. Mistrust, on the other hand, encourages secrecy, which begets deeper mistrust and can doom an otherwise well-conceived change. Whether changes are adaptive, innovative, or radically innovative, employees may resist change for all kinds of reasons. I want you to look at this list and see if you can identify with some of these reasons for resisting change. Think about whether you have resisted change in their own workplaces or school environments. And think about also what managers can do to make change easier. This concludes Chapter 10. Please let me know if you have any questions.